Hello, friends, and welcome to the Bikes for Death podcast. As always, my name is Patrick, and I am your host. And on today's interview, I am interviewing Edyn Teitge, who just became the 6th place finisher at this year's Idaho Smoke and Fire 400. One thing that will quickly set Edyn apart from the crowd is his age. At only 13 years old, he signed up to take on this route solo, self-supported. No friends or family was racing with him. He did this all on his own. And like I mentioned, he finished in 6th place with a time of 2 days, 15 hours, and 31 minutes. There was actually only an hour and a half that separated the 3rd and 6th place finishers. So this was a very tight race. And Edyn actually finished only 8 hours behind the legend, Jay Petervery. As a father of a 12-year-old who is about to turn 13, this story absolutely captivated me. I was intrigued, impressed, and wanted to get to know Edyn, wanted to understand what makes him tick and learn from him and his youthful wisdom. So glad that he joined us on today's episode. I had an absolute delight talking to him, and I cannot wait to see what he does in the future. If you're not familiar with the Idaho Smoke and Fire 400, it's been around for a while. They first started in 2014, and as the name indicates, it is held in Idaho, and it's about 400 miles. Typically, it is a loop, but this year, and also true to its name, Fire demanded a reroute, making the route a little bit closer to 375 miles. And instead of being a traditional loop, it was actually an out and back, which made for some interesting dot watching and also interesting from the participant standpoint. I've often said on this podcast that the great thing about bikepacking and endurance sports is that it is a great equalizer. Bikepack racing doesn't care how old you are, what gender you are, if you're on the latest, greatest bike, or if you're a sponsored rider. It truly is a great equalizer. And Edyn's story is just one more example of how age really is just a number. And while many people may look at age as a barrier, it was not so for Edyn. And when you remove that barrier, it seems like almost anything is possible. I appreciate Edyn coming on to share his story, and we are about to get right into it. But before we do, let us thank the people that made this episode possible, starting with our latest batch of patrons. This week, we'd like to welcome Taylor Evans, Ian Rhoat, and Sky Tettero-Crosby. Thank you all so much for signing up to be sustaining members of the podcast. A quick reminder that Hefe Bike is doubling up all patron pledges for a limited time. So all of your donations have been doubled up thanks to my friends over at Hefe Bike. If you'd like to check them out, you can do so over at hefe.bike. And if you would like to sign up to be a sustaining member of this podcast and get your contribution doubled, you can find out more over at patreon.com/Bikes for Death. Today's episode is also brought to us by Athletic Greens. I've been using Athletic Greens for a while now as a way to enhance my daily nutrition and build a better foundation for better health. With Athletic Greens, you're going to fill in your nutrient gaps. It promotes gut health and supports whole body vitality, all with AG1. All you need is one daily serving that delivers a potent blend of 9 healthy products, a multivitamin, minerals, probiotics, adaptogens, and more, all working together to help you feel like your healthiest self. Now, I like to take mine, if I'm at home, in a smoothie that I make every day. I'm big on smoothies, and it's easy to throw that in there, blend it up, and get all of the benefits from AG1. But if I'm bikepacking, they do make a travel pack that makes it super easy to get all of your 75 vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced nutrients in one convenient daily serving. All you got to do is open that bad boy, dump it into about 8 ounces of water and enjoy. And as you know, when we're out bike packing, it can be very difficult to get the nutrients that you need. And this is one very easy way to make that happen when you're out bike packing. Now, Athletic Greens is making it easy for you to try their product and offering you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 travel packs. To unlock that offer, go to athleticgreens.com/bikesfordeath and take control of your health today. All right, everybody. Today, we're going to announce a new sponsor for the Bikes for Death takeover, grep. And we have Jan here from grep to tell us all about it. Jan, thanks for being here. And for people who don't know, well, first off, thank you for being a sponsor of the takeover. That's huge. We can't do these events without support, and we really appreciate that. But for the uninitiated, for people who may not know, what is grep?
Yeah, hey, Patrick, thanks for having me. First of all, super happy to be sponsor of the Mulberry Gap takeover, and we're super happy to be on board, even from the distance. So grep is a company from Sweden. Together with my friend Thomas, we are basically grep, and we are manufacturing reusable woven handlebar tapes. We have like our manufacturing facility in Sweden. And yeah, this is in a nutshell pretty much what we're doing.
One fun idea that we had for the takeover is y'all are sponsoring the happy hour. We'll be imbibing on some adult beverages, and we're going to use y'all's handlebar tape to make koozies for all the drinks, so everybody will get to kind of touch and feel the product and get drunk while using it, which is, I hope, a approved process.
It's an awesome idea. I hope we're gonna make it happen to get the prototype into the cozy shape, and everyone has their hands on the when enjoying the adult beverages.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's a great tie-in. I think that's gonna be fun. So, I mean, there are a lot of handlebar tapes out there. What do you think grep does well?
Well, what differentiates us from let's say most of the handlebar tapes out there is that we have the reusability aspect. So our handlebar tape, which is a woven handlebar tape, is coming without any adhesive on the backside. And that lack of adhesive on the backside is basically gives you the opportunity to reuse the tape over and over again. So if you switch setups, you can unravel the tape and basically rewrap it again. We have rubber, basically threads in the tape, which hold it in place so it will not slip, because if you think like, hey, no adhesive, it will slip. No, it won't slip. And that gives you basically the capabilities to go away from a single-use product, which is conventional bar tapes. Usually when you unwrap them, most of the time break. Not all, but I say most of the time. And with ours, you have basically residual free handlebar tape, handlebar after you unwrap the tape, and then you can change like whatever, change your brake hose or something like that, and then wrap the bar tape again. And when it's dirty or you have been sweat into it plenty, you just throw it in the wash machine, wash it with your bibs or t-shirts or whatever you use for cycling or whatever at 40 degrees, and you have a fresh bar tape afterwards coming out from the washing machine, and you put it on your bike and you should be good to go.
Man, that is super cool. I love that it's reusable. That's super smart, and I think that that's a feature that that'll resonate with a lot of people for sure. I'm going to send people to your website if they want to check out your bar tape, your handlebar tape. Y'all are at grep.cc. That's GREPP.cc. You can check out some of their reusable handlebar tape there. And of course, if you're going to be coming to the Bikes for Death takeover at Mulberry Gap, you'll be able to get your hands on some there and some beer at the same time. Thanks for coming on the podcast today, Jan.
Thanks, Patrick, for having me.
Now, grep is based out of Sweden. A lot of our listeners are based in the United States. And if you are in the US, just head over to grep.cc. That's GREPP.cc. and use their store finder to find local distributors in the United States. All right, everybody, the bills have been paid and the lights will be on for one more week. Thank you so much to our sponsors that allow us to bring these episodes to you for free. Now, without further ado, let's get into my chat with Edyn Teitge. But first, let's have Miles Arbor kick it off with the Bikes for Death theme song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.
I'm super curious. I have a daughter that's 12. She turns 13 in 2 months. She just got out of like her watching cartoon phase, she's still pretty young. I consider her pretty young. I don't in my mind envision her going out and riding any 400-mile routes anytime soon. So I'm really curious, like, how were you introduced to cycling, and also like at what point did bikepacking even come onto your radar?
Well, I've been biking pretty much since I was like 2. I got like one of those scoop bikes, but like I really got into more competitive biking like 3 years ago, where it wasn't really like bikepacking, but I did some bike races through like NICA, and I just got into biking probably around 3 years ago as well. But one of our friends took me, or the first time I actually went bikepacking was with my dad and one of his friends and his friend's kid. We went, it was just like a short 80-mile ride following part of the Idaho hot springs route. And so that was the first time. We did it in about 3 days. But then the first bigger ride I did, it was like 250 miles. And I did that with one of my friends and their parents and my friend's 2 other siblings. And we rode from Stanley following the hot springs route again up to McCall, which is another town in our state in Idaho. But yeah, and then the first time I did like an alone bikepacking trip was last year. I was gonna try to do like a 300-mile trip, but the first day or the first night, I got really cold, so I just like decided to just make it an overnighter. So yeah.
Wow, that is insane. Recently on the podcast, I had PJ Terry on. He's a 17-year-old kid that, I should say maybe young man, that just co-shared the win at the Trans-North Georgia. Did you happen to hear about him?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because you were like, in my mind, you're like, holy crap, 17. I can't believe, you did something this epic at 17. And then Edyn comes along and you're like, hold my Red Bull, watch this. No shade, PJ. All of it's cool, but it's interesting, man. I wonder if like bikepacking, if this is what we're going to see, younger and younger people who are kind of growing up aware, involved in bikepacking. And it can only mean good things for the future of bikepacking if people are starting to get into it from a really young age. So you have your dad that went bikepacking with you for the first time. Was it your dad taking you bikepacking, or was it you convincing your dad to go bikepacking with you?
I think it was just my dad like trying to just like find a new sport, because I didn't really have a sport I liked before that. Like I had tried soccer, but I didn't really like just how that worked. But yeah.
Yeah. So is your dad a bikepacker or what?
He's not necessarily a bikepacker, but he has been like racing bikes for a pretty long time.
Okay. So he's in the cycling world. But so where did the idea of bikepacking I mean, I'm trying to think from his perspective. It sounds like you were probably about 10 years old when he took you for the first time. And that's a pretty like monumental thing. Like you skipped all the cycling that comes before that and you went straight to bikepacking. Do you know what was it about bikepacking that he thought you would like or that attracted you to bikepacking?
Well, before that, I wasn't really into biking that much, but I had definitely done some biking, and he thought it would probably just be like a fun thing to go out and do for like a weekend.
So how did that trip go?
It was good. The first day we went it was super long. We went 50 miles. Or super long at the time. But so that was the majority of it. And then the second day we only did like 20 miles. And then the third day we did another like 20 miles.
That's still like 50 miles at 10 years old is really epic actually. So you're saying it's short, but there's plenty of people that are well older than you that would have a very difficult time doing that. Did you enjoy that trip? Was it hard, challenging, fun? Like what was your takeaway from that first trip?
I think I just really liked being able to like go from our house, that's where we started, and just being able to go and do this trip, like just right out of our backyard.
Yeah. It's crazy. When I was your age, I did a 20-mile. It was a bike trip, but a car carried all of our camping gear. So we like biked and camped, but there was no like carrying your stuff essentially. And I thought that was like the most epic thing like a 12-year-old kid could do. And I mean, I guess it's still cool, but you blew me out of the water. So it's freaking amazing that at 12 or 10 you're doing this kind of stuff. I know for me at that age I found a lot of like freedom in that, like you don't have your own car, you're kind of relying on your parents to probably take you most places. Is that one of the things? I know for me that's one of my favorite things is I think the bicycle just unlocked a sense of freedom to go out and explore and just get from point A to B. Is that what you found as well?
Yeah.
So do you think whenever you turn 16, you're going to get a car or stick with the bike?
I'm pretty excited to probably get a car, but I won't really drive it like around too terribly much. It's just also another thing, like, cause we live next to some pretty good trails, but I've ridden them like almost every day, the same ones. And just there's this, like we have Galena, which is they have really nice trails up there. And it's about like a 45-minute drive. But I wouldn't really want to like go up there with all my bags and everything and like stay up there. It's just for like a day because they don't really have, much of like a good trail to get up there.
Yeah. Well, that's a good answer. If you're going to get a car, the only purpose of the car is to get you and your bike to somewhere else cool to go ride. That's the right answer. So you actually have friends. You said you went bikepacking with, a friend and their two siblings and their dad or their one of their parents.
Their mom. Yeah.
Wow. Who is that? I might need to talk to them too. I love kids and families that are getting out and doing this kind of stuff. I always find it inspiring because not a lot of people are doing this with kids,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a fun trip. So one of the mom's kids is my age, and then one of them was pretty young at the time, and then she also had like a toddler that she was had in like a burley that was attached to her bike.
What's her name?
The mom's name is Cara Liberator, and then the kid's name is, or one of the kids is Zoe Liberator.
Is that your friend, Zoe?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Man, that is crazy. Why didn't your dad go on that trip? Did you leave your dad in the dust? Because you mentioned that like he went on the first one and then the next two he didn't join on those two. So did you like surpass him or what?
I think it was probably he was just doing a lot of work and he couldn't really go on that trip with me.
Oh, that's a bummer. So
Yeah.
He still wouldn't mind going, but I definitely know what it's like to work and miss out on fun. Unfortunately, enjoy it while you can. So, how many friends do you have that bike pack?
Really, only Zoe.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I have one other friend. He's not really like bike packing every day, or like that much. But his name is Jonas.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. They're both about your age?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really neat. How do you think, do you think that the knowledge of bike packing is it just like, are people just more aware of bike packing? You know, because it wasn't like 5 or 6 years ago, bike packing was still, I think, pretty underground, so to speak. And it was just kind of emerging and people were really starting to learn about it. But it's interesting. It seems like at a very young age, like people are starting to be aware of bike packing. Is it just kind of common knowledge, you think?
I wouldn't necessarily call it like common knowledge, but it's definitely getting like much more popular because just, like the freedom of being able to go on your bike and go for long distances.
In your friend group, how aware are they of what you did at the Idaho Smoke and Fire?
So actually my class, the first day I went out there, they actually like put up the track leaders and they watched me a little bit. And so that was pretty cool. But yeah, they were pretty aware of it.
Did you have any other friends that signed up for the Smoke and Fire and did it with you, or did you do it by yourself, or did your dad even sign up or anything?
No, I did it totally by myself.
Whoa, that's crazy. Well, we'll talk more. We're definitely going to talk about Smoke and Fire. I had another question about what do you think that your dad and your family did right to like introduce you to bike packing, essentially, you know, because I'm sure there's a lot of parents that are going to be listening. They're like, how do I get my 10-year-old to go bike packing and not only go bike packing, but enjoy it so much that you take it and you're like, screw that, I'm going to go do 400 miles. Like, what do you think that your family did right? Do you have any idea?
Probably just like introducing me into like just biking for not like for long distances, but just for shorter distances, and then gradually like moving up to maybe like an overnighter or something longer. Yeah.
Is your family pretty outdoorsy in general?
Yeah, my dad is. My mom isn't quite as outdoorsy.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
No, I'm just an only child.
Yeah. So they get to take you, or I guess your dad gets to take you on all the adventures. No family rivalry.
No.
I'm curious, are there any people, being so young, you don't have a lot of, it's probably other people your age that you can really like look up to. I think a lot of younger people might be looking up to you at this point, but who are you looking at in bike packing? Like, who inspires you? Who do you look up to in bike packing?
Well, Jay, the person that like Jay Petervery, the person that won the Smoke and Fire this year, he's pretty like inspiring. And then also one other young person that does bike packing, their name is Jacob, and he rode the Silk Road with Jay and has done like a lot of other, like he did the Iditarod and has done a lot of other cool bike packing things.
Yeah, Jacob, I think he did Iditarod at 16, if I remember correctly. And then the next year, that same year, did Silk Road, both with Jay Petervery, which is really cool. So did you know Jay prior to going into Smoke and Fire, or did you get a chance to meet him while you were there?
I didn't really know him. I'd heard of him, but I did get I kind of met him. He waited at the end because we had met a couple of people prior to the race, like because me and my dad actually did a kind of reconnaissance mission, and we rode the entire Smoke and Fire loop. And we met a couple of people that were doing the race, and they had told me, or they had told Jay about me, and so Jay waited at the end. And then we also have some friends that knew Jay, so they told him about me as well.
Yeah. I think you, Jacob, and PJ Terry, y'all are the three youngest people I know of that are, I mean, not just like bikepacking, but, competing and signing up for some really epic and challenging races. And it is kind of cool how JP is it seems like he's taken Jacob under his wing and done some really, really neat stuff. So that's really neat that he like waited around for you to say hi. So at what point did you say, I'm going to sign up for Smoke and Fire? Actually, did you say here, how did it go down? Did you say, I'm going to sign up for Smoke and Fire, or did you just say to yourself, I want to take on a big challenge and then go seeking out a challenge? Like, how did that play out?
Well, I kind of like this spring, I kind of was just searching like bikepacking races around our area. And because I had gotten really into like doing Nike races, but they're super short and I prefer endurance. And I found the Smoke and Fire and I'm like, this seems pretty cool. So I did some like research on it and found the route and everything. And then I like sent in like a letter of intent like pretty early because I was pretty like hyped up about it. And then me and my dad rode the course and I was like, okay, this is going to be pretty hard. This is going to be fun. And then like, as it started to get closer, I like didn't really know if I was going to do it. I was like, this would be pretty fun to do. Maybe I'll do it this year. Maybe I'll do it like in other years. But then like when they put out the track leaders, or the track leader registration, I'm like, okay, it's getting more real. So I signed up for that and like I had been like kind of testing out my gear, getting gear and packing for a lot, but like for a while before that. But then I'm like, okay, it's starting to get real. So yeah.
So you decided to just go ahead and do it. What were what was bouncing around in your mind? Because it sounds like you didn't actually commit until like you signed up, but you didn't like commit until later on. Like what was going on that, was it just equipment? Was it training? Was it concerns about something? Like what was the question mark whether or not you would actually do it?
Just like if I would be able to do those, like, because I like the longest ride I've ever done, it like up to that point hadn't been that long. I feel like I could go after the rides. I feel like I could like my longest rides. I feel like I could have gone farther, but I didn't know if I would be able to like actually fully do like 100 miles day after day after day. So that was one of it. And then also about like predators, like bears or whatever. We don't have that many, but so like my first solo trip, it was cold like the first night, but I also saw a ton of deer eyes. And that was like kind of scary for me because, yeah, I was like 12 or so. But yeah.
And you didn't know they were deer eyes or what?
Yeah, I didn't know what they were. And it was kind of weird. I was like riding on the highway and someone honked their horn at me. And like that just kind of set me off. And then I looked down into like the bushes and there were a ton of deer eyes. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to put my daughter on blast, but, she doesn't even like, I don't leave her home very often, but like she will not, if I go to the grocery store for an hour or whatever, she doesn't even like to be home alone when it's nighttime, much less like going bikepacking on her own. I actually meant to ask you about this earlier, but like, what is your parents' perspective on, specifically that first bikepacking trip you did by yourself, completely solo? Were your parents concerned about that?
Yeah, so they were like, they weren't too terribly concerned, but they like had me have like some bear spray and a spot tracker just in case. And then also, I think I borrowed someone's satellite phone for that as well.
Okay. What about you? What did you have any concerns going solo? I mean, I just, I was interviewing Gemma, the last episode that just came out. She got a FKT on the Highland Trail 550, and she's 40 years old and didn't camp by herself until I think like 39 or something like that. And it's pretty common. I know plenty of like grown men that are scared to sleep in the woods by themselves. They hear a scary noise and it kind of freaks them out. So what about you? Did you have any concerns about doing I think you said that was a 300-mile route solo?
Yeah. I like had some concerns because I had only really studied the first part of the route. I didn't really know where the second part of the route went through because I had just kind of made it I was also following part of the Idaho Hot Springs route. I was following part of it, doing it backwards. And I had only really ridden the first part or known that first part. I didn't really know the second part of it. So I was concerned about doing just what it would be like to be alone out there for multiple days. And yeah, so I decided to just kind of do overnighter because I started pretty late the first day and rode into the night a little bit. And that was scary with the deer eyes. So I camped at only 30 miles and woke up the next day, kept riding. And I think I stopped at mile 60 where there was this grocery store. And I'm like, Mom, Dad, can you please come pick me up?
What did they say? No?
No, they were like, yeah, we can. It'll be fine.
I'm just kidding. Of course they come and get you. Most parents do, I think. Hopefully they come and get you. Was that the only real concern is just what was the deer eyes that kind of spooked you a little bit?
Yeah.
What was your takeaway from that trip? Did it bum you out that you weren't able to complete it? Did you learn a lot and grow from that? What was your takeaway?
It bummed me out some that I couldn't complete it, but it was just also I thought it was, even though I got scared by the deer eyes, I thought it was pretty fun to be out there and just be feel free and alone to just think whatever you want to think. And just, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of freedom, but not a lot of 13-year-olds might know how to manage themselves with that much freedom, I mean, if you're used to always having either teachers or coaches or parents who are, predominantly always there, giving you guidance, helping you if you have questions. I mean, there's a lot of freedom that comes with that, but there's also a lot of responsibility that comes with that freedom. Do you, I mean, if you had to evaluate yourself, do you find that you're a fairly responsible and I don't know, capable, confident young man?
Yeah, I'm pretty cautious. I don't really go do crazy
I was gonna challenge you on that, but it sounds like you're backpedaling, so I'll let you.
I don't go do dumb stuff. I'm pretty cautious. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people would definitely argue about the 400-mile smoke and fire, but I agree with you. I think you do anything just about cautiously and take certain protocols and procedures to make sure that you're ready to take on a challenge. Can you talk about some of the things that you've done to make you feel like you're prepared to take on a big challenge like that?
Just I'm riding every day, and the main thing was just getting my bike ready. I had to I built up a dynamo wheel. I got all these, well, I already had a lot of bags, but I had to get a new water filter and just getting a lot of gear. And yeah.
Did you not have, because you had already done some bikepacking trips, were you borrowing gear, or did you just need better gear to actually do the race?
Well, so I had been borrowing like frame bags and stuff, and I just used like kind of a fanny pack that I strapped onto my handlebars for like a handlebar bag. And then I had a pretty nice seat bag though. But yeah, I just had to, so I got like handlebar bag and then a frame bag as well.
Yeah, right on. One thing I saw on your Instagram that I thought was really cool was your tarp setup. Do you want to talk about how you set up your tarp and how well it worked on the smoke and fire?
So yeah, I just basically I propped up my bike, or I like took the front wheel off my bike and put the fork on the ground, and then I draped my tarp over the handlebars of the bike to kind of create a tent, and then staked that down. And then in the back of the tarp, I put up the wheel that I had already taken off to kind of prop it up so it wasn't like flapping around on the ground. And then I staked down the ends. So it wasn't like a freestanding thing. You had to have stakes to plant it into the ground. But I actually didn't. I brought that on the smoke and fire just in case it did rain, which it did. But the first night, it was raining and I didn't really want to set up the tarp. So I actually found like a pit toilet and like rolled out my stuff under the like little thingy.
Oh yeah. Now you're a bike packer. You're not a real bike packer until you sleep in a pit toilet. I think that's a rule. You check that one off your bucket list. What tarp was that you were using? Was it designed to use in the manner you were using it, or did you kind of rig it up that way?
No, it was just basically like an ultralight tarp that my dad had for quite a while. And I'm just like, that would be pretty cool. I think I like saw a video. I was watching videos of like ultra endurance bikepacking events. And I saw like a video of someone doing something like that. And I kind of got inspiration from that and was like, that would be cool. I'm going to try to do that with the tarp I have.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that setup. I've used a similar one. Great minimal setup. You just need a pad, a sleeping bag, and a tarp, and as long as it doesn't rain too much. I think the downside is if it rains too much, you're just going to be like floating on a river, I guess, of water. But hey, it's bikepacking, right? Let's talk about the reconnaissance ride that you and your dad did. When did y'all do that?
We did it like right after I got out of school this year. So I think we did it June, like the end of June.
Yeah. How did that go? How many days did y'all take to do it?
So we took 6 days to do the like full route, and it went really well. So we did the full route starting from our valley because it goes right through Ketchum, which is near where we live. And so we just started in Ketchum because we didn't want to drive like all the way down to Boise, which is about 2 hours away from us. So that's what we did instead. Yeah.
I saw you made a YouTube video of that on your YouTube channel. Your dad was saying that you were kicking his butt. Is that true, or was he just saying for the camera?
I think he got like pretty tired. He thought it was just going to be somewhat of like vacation, but we didn't really like think about like how much he had to get back to work. So we're like, okay, yeah, we can do it in 6 days. That'll be fine. But then that's like 70 miles a day. And the first days we had been getting up kind of late, but then like the last couple of days we had to start getting up at like 4 a.m. and riding till like 12 or so. And yeah, so it got more of like something that would resemble more of a race than just like a leisurely vacation.
So who was having more fun, you or your dad?
I was having a lot of fun. It was really fun.
Was your dad happy or miserable?
He was happy. There were some parts where he was like pretty tired.
It's just crazy. I'm still blown away. I don't know if I'll get used to it by the end of this interview that I do take my kids bikepacking. Nothing even close to the scale. I mean, we're talking like when I take my kids, it's like 7, 8, 10 miles, like very minimal. And we're in Texas. There's no hills here. There's no mountains. So I'm still wrapping my head around that. Do you have any idea like what makes you such a good endurance? I mean, we could call you an endurance athlete at this point, like how much do you weigh?
I weigh like 85 pounds.
Yeah, you weigh 85 pounds. And I read that your bike with fully loaded was 37 pounds. So half your weight, essentially. What makes you good at endurance, do you think?
I don't know. It's just, I don't really I'm not really built to like sprint on a 4-mile track. I'm pretty light for how much, or my age. And I just kind of like going for long distances.
Yeah. I think that's what I was wondering. I wonder if it's like more of just like a mental enjoyment, because if you are enjoying something, you're going to be able to do it and enjoy it for longer periods of time. And so maybe it's just a natural enjoyment of going long distances.
Yeah.
So when you finished the Smoke and Fire with your dad, what was the conversation like between y'all? Were you like fired up, or was your dad fired up?
Yeah. I really liked the course. Like it has a lot of climbing, and we did it in a pretty like hot part of we did it like, it gets pretty hot around June or July whenever we did it. So there were like some 100-degree days, and that was pretty hard. But like towards September, it starts to cool off, and I was just really like hyped up about that, and I was just excited to like get all my gear ready and everything like that.
What did you learn from doing the Smoke and Fire with your dad, that helped you prepare for the actual race?
Just like, that was the first time I'd ever really like ridden 90 miles in a day. And we were able to do that multiple days in a row. And I was like, whoa, I could actually do this. Like, it's not just some dream of mine.
Yeah. So you learned you were capable, which is very important. The mental aspect of it, believing that you can do something, knowing that you're capable, is vital. What about with like your gear or anything like that? Did you find holes in your gear, your setup, that you can improve to make better for the actual race?
So for the reconnaissance mission, I brought like a lot of extra stuff, and me and my dad have like a pretty strict diet, or pretty much my entire family has a pretty strict diet. We only eat organic foods. And I had brought like a lot of heavy foods that took up a lot of space and were heavy. So for the actual race, I dehydrated a lot of food so that I could like cold soak it. I didn't bring a stove, but just like putting it in a container with water like an hour before I needed to eat. It was like so much lighter, and it was much less like area that it filled up in my bag.
Yeah, that's smart, man. I've actually done a similar thing. There's a dehydrator, but there's another one. There's like freeze dried and dehydrated, and it's the freeze dry one that's like, it's a super expensive machine. I'm guessing y'all have the dehydrator that I don't know. They're like, I looked into getting one, and they're like, a used freeze dryer is like $3,000, $5,000. Like, I think actually the idea that I had is I wanted to start a company where I freeze dry like all like really good food, because like you, I don't have probably maybe as strict of a diet as you do, but like it has always been a curiosity of mine, is like, you have these endurance athletes, whether it's Tour Divide or Smoke and Fire, these long races, and you're just eating gas station food and like processed food and like hot dogs from a gas station. And I was always like, man, what if you could like take really good whole food, organic, good food with you on your bike ride and be fueling with like legit food. What are some things that you freeze dried for your race?
So I didn't freeze dry. I dehydrated it. But,
Dehydrated.
So I dehydrated like a lot of rice and beans. And then also for protein, I did some tofu, which it didn't rehydrate the best with like cold soaking it, but it was pretty good. And then also I dehydrated some like broccoli for some greens. And that was pretty much what it was. Like my lunch, I had the tofu, beans, and rice. And then I also brought a tortilla that I could just crumble up in it to eat with it. And for dinners, I had rice, broccoli, and beans.
Nice. So your process for that would be you just put your dehydrated food in like a water bottle or something, add some water, put it on your bike, let it slosh around for a while, and like eat it later. Like, what was that actual process like?
Yeah, so I had like plastic ice cream container that has like a screw-on lid, and I just basically poured in the like rice, beans, and whatever else it was and then like filled it up with water so that it wouldn't be like soupy, but it just rehydrate enough. And then I just put it in my frame bag and like rode an hour or so.
I love that. I saw the picture. I was actually curious what was in the ice cream jar. I could tell it wasn't ice cream, but yeah, it's all making sense now. Where did you get the idea to do that? And did you test it out before Smoke and Fire?
I had just the first with my dad, the reconnaissance, whatever. I had actually brought like bags of not like just fresh rice that we had cooked, and that was really heavy, and I didn't like lugging all that weight around. So I was like, what if I dehydrated that? And then I don't know where I got the idea of like cold soaking it. And then I actually didn't test it before the Smoke and Fire. I was like, hopefully this rehydrates well, because I think I also may have seen a video of someone doing it, and I'm like, it'll work.
That's youth for you. So how did it work? Were you pretty happy with the, I mean, it was only 2.5 days. You can kind of get through anything in 2.5 days, but was it palatable? Were you happy with that setup?
It turned out actually like, really well. Except for the tofu. It didn't rehydrate quite well. It was still a little bit crunchy.
Yeah. I know I did eggs when I freeze dried it, and I could never get the eggs to rehydrate exactly right, but it's bikepacking, so it's not a 5-star restaurant. You just really need the calories. That's really cool, man. I love that you did that. I've never heard of anyone else doing it. You're the first time. So 129 episodes, you're the first person I've talked to that's done that. So you might be teaching some of these old dogs a few new tricks. So So you did the recon with your dad, and then at some point, fires were a huge issue, and that required a reroute. So at what, like in proximity to the start of the race, when did you find out about the fires and the reroute and all that stuff?
So the Ross Fork fire, the like fire that actually crossed the route, it had been burning like 20 days before, and it was pretty small. It was only like 7,000 acres, and it was kind of burning like in the middle of the Sawtooths. But then there was this major wind shift, and it had a like ginormous flare up where it actually came like down to our highway, and when it crossed the route, and it grew to like almost 40,000 acres in just a couple of days. And that was only like pretty much, I think I like had to like reload all of the routes onto my Garmin. Just about 2 days before the race was the reroute.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's crazy. So, I mean, that affects a lot. Resupply points and where you're going to sleep and do you know how much? I know it changed the distance. I think it went from like 415 miles to 370 or something like that. How did that route change affect your strategy and your planning and your packing? I mean, 2 days before you're supposed to do it. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so the major like resupply point that I was really like looking for was Ketchum, because it's a big town and it would have organic food that I could eat. Like all of the other like Garden Valley and all of the other tinier towns, they're really just like gas stations that I couldn't really eat at. So it changed a lot. I had to like go to the store and buy a ton of bars and stuff that I could just pack in my frame bag. And I had luckily already like dehydrated all of my food, and I had a couple extras that I could throw in. But yeah.
So you basically just had to pack more food was the main thing. Your strategy for the race, let's talk about a little bit about that. Did you go in with, I'm going to ride X number of miles, I'm going to sleep X number of hours? Like, what was your strategy? Or were you just like, I'm just going to ride until the wheels fall off and see what happens? Like, what was your strategy going into it?
So I was actually planning to do it in 4 days, because that's how, like, I only thought I could ride that much. But I like started off a lot faster than I thought, and I got like to 121 miles right before 9 p.m. And so I was pretty happy about that. And that night I slept 4 hours. I think I went to bed at like 10 or so after getting everything ready and having dinner. And then I woke up around 2 and just rode into like the daytime. And I was like, I could probably do this again, because I had gotten another early start. So I actually came back to that exact same like place that I had done the first night, because it turned into an out and back instead of a loop. So I like got to the end, turned around, and came back to that same place. And I'm like, okay, all I have to do is the first day again.
So did you wind up doing about 320 mile days in a row, something around that?
I think the first day was, it was about 121 miles. The second day was like 135. And then the third or like last couple of hours, or 15 hours or whatever it was another 121 miles.
Wow. That is crazy. So what were you thinking to yourself as you were riding further than you thought, and you're kind of beating your own estimates by a long way? Not only that, but you're kind of at the pointy end of the race. Like, were you like, were your goals and your expectations for yourself evolving as you went? Or were you just kind of in your own lane, doing your thing, just doing the best that you can?
I was just kind of in my own lane. I was like, I still thought I might just like crash, hit a wall where I'd have to spend an extra day out there, but it didn't happen. And I was able to just keep on doing that same pace.
Wow. That's crazy. When you finished, did you feel like you had more left? Like you could have kept going, you could have pushed it harder, or did you kind of leave it all out there and get yourself?
I don't feel like I could have gone any faster, like more miles per day. But I feel like I could have like maintained that pace for maybe a couple more days.
Wow. That's cool. That's really cool. One of the neat things that I think it's kind of neat is that, typically Smoke and Fire is done in a loop this year because of the fire. It had to be an out and back, as you mentioned, which means that you're passing all of your competitors as you're going, you turn around, you come back, and you're getting to see everybody. Was that kind of fun? Was that intimidating? What was that experience like, to be like coming, face to face with all of your competition?
It was really fun. And everybody, since I was so young, everybody was like super encouraging. And there were a couple of people that like knew, they had just been looking at the track leaders and they had seen me and they're like, are you the 13-year-old that's doing it? And yeah, everybody was really encouraging.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking I think it would be fun. It just, I don't know, makes you feel like you're not out there alone. You get to see some other people and, yeah, just say hi and see other people that are kind of doing the same thing that you're doing. What about the fires? How did they impact you and the race overall? Other than the obvious, like, huge reroute, but, you know.
Yeah, so like the first 2 days, it didn't really impact me too much. You could see like a smoke bank, but it wasn't coming towards like where the route was. It was kind of blowing a different direction. But like the night of the second day, it started to get a little bit more smoky and I could like feel it in my lungs. And then the morning of the third day or whatever it was, it got really smoky. I think the AQI was like around 200. So I actually had to wear an N95 mask that entire last day. And that was like it was just pretty demoralizing, like not being able to breathe fresh air.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've never even tried to ride a bike with a mask on, but I can't imagine it being any fun. Did the N95 help with the smoke? I mean, did it make it more, I guess, just doable?
Yeah, I think it definitely helped like save my lungs from like all of that smoke. But it was just so hard because like in the morning it was like 30 degrees and all of the condensation from the mask was like dripping down. So yeah, that was pretty hard.
How hard was this for you? I mean, I can't fathom. But you went in with a goal of 90 miles or 100 miles a day, or that's the furthest you've ever ridden, and you're doing 120, 130 miles. I can't imagine you're anything but impressed with your abilities and kind of like, holy crap, I can do this. Yeah, what was that like for you to like kind of surprise and surpass your own expectations?
It was pretty awesome. I didn't think I could do it when I like started or do the time. I was like, maybe I could try to do it in 3 days because they cut like a couple, I think it was like 50 miles that they cut off. But I was pretty impressed at like how I was able to continue riding like even through like the smoke.
Yeah. What was the hardest part for you? What was the most challenging part of the whole experience?
It probably was the last day with the smoke because just like that day had a significant amount of elevation and just like breathing that air that you had already like breathed in. It was just really hard. And then the like mask, it also it wasn't filtering out all the smoke, so I could still like feel it in my lungs. And yeah.
Yeah, in Texas, we're fortunate where we don't get a lot of like wildflower fires. I know in like, the Western states, it's a little more common. And so that's another experience that I haven't really, had to deal with before. Are the fires relatively common in your area this time of year, or with global warming and everything, is it like just ramping up?
They're pretty common around here. It like the past couple of years it's gotten worse, like the smoke has blown in more.